of this week's edition of Political Smackdown. I'm Andy Dedman, I'm your host this week, and we have got our regulars, and Betsy Wells is back with us. Miss you, Betsy.
Glad to be back.
She's out doing her thing, so now she's back to do her thing here. All right, folks, let's get started. All right, the General Assembly of North Carolina is back in session this week, and every few years this brings up two, it could be a problem or it's a dilemma that right now the General Assembly's salary and reimbursements have been frozen since 1994 and has never been changed. There's also a concern about their using campaign funds that might not be used in the correct manner. So here we go, Wes. I mean, you've been there like I have. It's a dilemma. I mean, we were froze in place by the Contract on America, as we called it, that was run on by Republicans such as Debbie Clary back in '94, and they ran and railed about General Assembly raising their salary per diem. Well, here we be, and everybody is scared to death to do anything. I mean, you look at now, you've got gas that's been bumping $4 a gallon in a lot of places in this state. And you've got people running from Murphy to Manio to Raleigh, just like it's always been. And it looks like it's time maybe to think about this a little bit more in depth. I mean, the average pay for a General Assembly member nationwide is roughly $43,000. I mean, what do you think? I mean,
and it's what here, 14,000?
Yeah, just under 14,000. So, I mean, it's a dilemma we find ourselves in.
Well, it is, and I think they should be compensated. I want to be careful. We don't need to get into a full-time legislature. I think that would be a mistake. The most egregious, well, one, there's a political price to pay to raise your own salary, especially if you don't have a current working budget. We understand we're working under a budget, but it's essentially frozen from 2 years ago. But there's a political price to pay, which is why nobody wants to put forth a bill or vote for it. But I think the most egregious is the gas reimbursement, the mileage reimbursement. It's roughly nearly half.
Not quite half,
25
What the
24
federal
cents.
allowance is, and that should be pegged, in my opinion, at least to the federal allowance for gas. But yeah, I think they should make more. It's a difficult job. There's a lot of time. It's very difficult to have a full-time job, particularly as a younger member, trying to raise a family, trying to do things on the road. You know, from here, that's 4 hours, assuming you don't get caught too bad on 40 going in. It's just an awful lot of back and forth, a lot of time. You've got to stay in a hotel, maintain a place to live there. I rented an apartment for the short time that I was there. People should be compensated. They should be compensated reasonably. I don't think we need to have the highest in the nation by any stretch. But
about the other thing too, the second part about campaign funds. I mean, I remember back in the day, there was no restraint on. I know one member bought a car, another took he and his wife to Ireland. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that people used to do with it, but it seems like they've tightened up to the point you've either got to use campaign funds or the state needs to pay them.
I agree, and that was part of the rationale for freezing that pay was you've got the campaign funds that can be spent for other things that are not.
But everybody can't raise enough to go to Ireland.
Well, and I don't think going to Ireland, I don't think is ever appropriate.
No, it's not.
Well, there was,
out of a
I can
campaign
remember one
account.
We said
Republican.
like this, some in the West cannot raise enough money to pay the rent that they need to have to rent a place, because $104 a day don't cover rent and food anymore.
Well, when I served with a dentist that was in Murphy, what was that costing him in his practice to leave that to come to Raleigh and serve?
Well, a lot of those folks, they would leave the day before on Sunday.
They had to.
Yeah,
They had to.
because you're looking about 8 hours.
That's right.
Well, but it's like one Republican member. I remember her. She never really had anybody run against her till somebody did it and she lost. she had her fund, at that point, was a little over $250,000, that she was having it professionally managed by a money person. I mean, and then, but when she finally started and she got somebody ran against her, it might be her, she started screaming, she spent all that money, and then wanted everybody to chip in. Everybody said, well, that's your problem, you know. But Betsy, it's a ticklish thing. I mean,
is.
it used to be, it was just spend it as in what you think people will tolerate, basically. And I mean, I paid newspapers out of it. I bought my gas campaigning out of it. I think that was really about all I
And
spent.
I think those are legit.
Yeah, and I felt like they were, and I also my internet too. But
You didn't get any suits and ties with it?
no,
Our new
I
cars.
really don't think I did. I can't remember ever. I always felt like that was kind of my personal, but there were some other people around.
But that
felt-
is a uniform in Raleigh.
Well, it's in a lot of ways it is, but I just didn't feel like that was something that I should do.
I would not have.
I just didn't feel like it's something I should do. But Betsy, I mean, you've knocked around in this stuff for years. You've raised money, and I'm sure you've probably wondered, are they using my money wisely?
Well, if it's trips to Ireland, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But going back to what Wes said, we do not want a full-time legislature. And the way that it is now, a younger person that's got a family and got a business, it's hard to go to Raleigh. I remember when the TV commentator from WBTV won the 2-year term in the state Senate.
Oh, Carter.
John
Yeah,
Carter.
John Carter, and he gave it up after 1-year term because it was too conflicting with his job.
I think that's because there's only 10 Republicans in the Senate.
Oh, is that what it was?
Or something like that.
But anyway, I think they need to raise the salary, but it's just like you say, they're afraid if they do it, that they'll be taxed, spend the thrift, but $13,951 a year. And for the time that you spent, now one thing about Zoom is that you can do meetings on that and not have to make the drive, but you really need to be in those conferences and in those meetings in person. But I just think probably they do need to raise it, and they need to raise the gas. I mean, look at it. But I don't know if they will. But it says that, in general, state law requires that campaign funds be only used for expenditures directly related to campaigning or the official duties of holding public office. Candidates may also donate their campaign funds to nonprofits, political parties, or other candidates, and we see this happening. And I know Berger has always been in the news about how much he pays for rent on an apartment back at his home district that he says is for his campaign manager. But I just think that, I think if you go overboard, like the gentleman in Lincoln County that bought all those wonderful suits and all those expensive clothes, that's different. I mean, you've got to be a good steward of the campaign
I
funds.
think so. Michael?
Well, I think I can simplify this, and I think I have a good idea of what ought to happen, but somebody's going to have the courage to do it. If you go back to 1994, you're at what, 25 years? No, almost 30 years. Yeah, over 30 years.
Over 30 years.
So if that was a reasonable amount in 94, you figure what the inflation rate has been since then, you figure what your number would be now, and maybe you peg it at 75% of that so it doesn't look like you've overdone it. And then, when you pass that bill, included in that bill is that the legislature gets the same percentage of increase they give the general state employees each time.
And
you
the
never
council
have
of
to,
state.
and you never have to
And the
vote on it
council of
again.
state.
See, that's the
Yeah.
other thing. We were raising them all along when we weren't, because that was just part of the budget, and it just rolled right in.
And how about you tie it to the budget?
Well, I guess you could do it a number of ways, but we did that in Shelby one time. Dee Freeman was the manager, and they hadn't raised it in forever, and we didn't raise it. We just passed a policy that the board members would get the same amount of increase percentage-wise that they gave to the employees in that year. They did round hours to the next $5, so it was always, it might go up, if it was $1, it would go up $4 more a month or year. And so it may over time, but it never did prove to be a problem. So I think something like that could be done. And as relates, and that ought to be coupled with the mileage thing, and they need to, if not get it to the federal rate, get it to 75% of the federal rate where you're still doing a favor, because it's not but a little over a third of the federal rate now. It's, I think, 60-something cents a mile. As far as how they spend campaign money, I think when they do that, the corollary would be to tighten further what you can use campaign money for as kind of an offset, and it may make it more palatable to the public. But there does need to be some change in pay without going to a full-time General Assembly.
And Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, at the time you were there, 3 years, a term and a half, put you in state retirement eligibility, correct?
5.5.
5.5, okay. By the time I was there, that was done away with. You had to have the same as everybody else. And that's a pretty big difference in value of the position.
Well, and as you get older, I have greatly appreciated that.
Well,
and which I got when I turned 65.
there
so.
is one problem with my recommendation. The general public already thinks they're all overpaid.
Yes,
That's
yes.
the problem, is selling the general public.
Well, and it is, and it's a bunch of landmines that you can blow yourself up on. And that's why usually nobody has done it for that very reason. There was always the thought that maybe somebody that was getting ready to maybe retire or something, or somebody in such a safe district they couldn't be touched, to do it. And then we could all kind of maybe roll it into the budget somehow. That would be the way to do it, not do it as a standalone bill.
But Andy,
So-
if the only people that can afford the job are wealthy
Wealthy.
attorneys who are also working for companies, then all you're gonna have in the General Assembly is wealthy attorneys working for companies.
And as I've
Well,
heard Mike say, they probably get sideways in a trough too, because they're going to meet people everywhere in business. If our lawyer goes down there and cannot figure out how to make money legally down there, they ain't much of a lawyer.
Well, I wonder, you're talking about someone that's on their last term. I wonder if Berger will do anything about the salary since he's on his way out.
I wouldn't hold my breath on
I
that
wouldn't
one.
either.
Well, folks, it's a tough issue any way you go, and you know a lot of times you get what you pay for. Well, we're going to take a break a little bit early because this next question, I am sure Mr. Westmoreland is going to have a thing or two to say about it. We'll be right back with second half Political Smackdown.
As Cleveland County's premier event facility, LeGrand Center is the ideal location for any event. The LeGrand Center is located 45 minutes west of Charlotte, 45 minutes north of Spartanburg, and just a little over an hour east of Asheville. Whether you're a small business looking for a place for an off-site meeting or a bride looking for that special location for her wedding, LeGrand Center is the perfect place for you.
Welcome back to Political Smackdown. Well, Wes, when I read this article, I thought of you immediately. It seems that in Great Britain this past week, they have passed a law waiting on the king to sign it that would eliminate, outlaw, whatever you want to call it, anybody being able to buy tobacco or vape products if they were born after 2009. So and you know, it's kind of one of those double-edged swords. I mean, we all understand that there's probably some more medical cost that goes to the public, and since they've got nationalized medicine, it actually really is coming out of their pocket to try to protect themselves from that. But then you have the other side is personal freedom to be able to do what you want. And, you know, I was listening to a commentator was talking about this issue, and he said, what is right about this, that somebody is born on December 31st, 2008, they get to use tobacco products on to the rest of their life. Somebody born the very next day on January 1st of 2009 can never have it. So where are you at on this? I can only guess.
Well, get ready. It's coming to a town near you one of these days. It's going to happen. You know, Mike, you've referred to Senator Helms making the comment, when they quit picking on tobacco, I'll quit subsidizing. They're still picking on tobacco and have been my entire lifetime. But it sort of reminds me, you know, I don't smoke, I've never met tobacco I didn't like, but asked a preacher one time, was smoking a sin? And the preacher said, well, yes, son, it has to be a sin to burn anything as good as tobacco. And that's sort of where I am on it, but this would do away with that as well. You know, cigarette use, from what I could find in Great Britain, is around 10.5%. There's a $50, 50-pound fine for cigarette use in forbidden areas. If a business doesn't display the sign, the business is fined 200 pounds. Now that's silly. But pot is between 6.8 and 7.4% of adults use pot in Great Britain. First time offender, 80 pounds. I don't understand why tobacco continues to be the whipping boy, and why vaping, which is a great way to move people from cigarettes, off of cigarettes, is categorized the same way. It makes no sense. And Andy, you know, you can't forget every law that is created anywhere by anybody, the ultimate penalty is death. Ultimately, that's what happens. If you don't believe it, look up Eric Gardner in New York for selling a single cigarette, died in police custody. Is it worth that? I don't think so. And it's going to create a black market. But to your point, once the government gets its nose under the tent and starts paying for medical care, the government will begin to assume the responsibility of what you can consume. And many of these choices will be dictated by industries and lobbyists and how they give money, not by science. Next thing you know, Mike, governments are going to start closing churches and requiring people to have a shot to get a job.
Well, Mike, I mean, I've never been a cigarette smoker, and I despise being around it. I used to do have a cigar once in a while, and I know you do too. But what are your thoughts? I mean, it just looks to me like they're overreaching, and to an extent of some personal freedom. But I understand you've got the dilemma. If I'm paying for your health care, does that give me a right to have something about how you should live your life?
I'm going to have something to say about that.
I figured you would.
So I do think it's government overreach, and it's not just government overreach, it's way, way, way government overreach. It's not like saying whether you can buy a beer at 18 or a beer at 21. It's like saying no matter how old you get, you can't have a cigarette or a vape product. That's just beyond me. And of course, one of the reasons they use in Great Britain and would here if it comes here, and you know usually what crazy stuff happens in Europe makes its way over here. Kind of like it does the opposite. If it happens in California, it makes its way back to the east. But clearly, we should not smoke because we know enough scientifically today to know that it's not particularly healthy. Tobacco use, even in chewing, is not particularly healthy, but it's not as bad as smoking. But I thought I'd just point out what the national, if you're going to say you're not going to allow it because it's going to lower your health care costs, well, this is from the National Institute of Health in the United States. Foods such as bacon, hot dogs, and red meat are heavily linked to heart disease, stroke, and cancer. Excessive sodium and sugar diets are major contributors to cardiometabolic things, heart things. Ultra-processed foods, bologna, hot dogs are a big deal. And now if we really want to go to meddling, the World Health Organization says that alcohol consumption is linked to cancer of the mouth, throat, esophagus, liver, colon, and breast, third leading preventable cause of cancer in the United States. Where are you going to stop?
Well, I think it's a pretty good idea. You ain't going to get out of this world alive. So eat your bologna sandwich, folks.
The World Health Organization says, differently from some, there's no safe level of alcohol consumption. As you know, many others say moderate use is likely not to be a big problem of alcohol. And of course, defining what moderate is another issue. But Martin Luther, the great reformer, said that you've had too much to drink if you can't stay on your horse. If you fall off your horse, you have had too much to drink.
I'd say that would be a good one.
We probably can agree with that.
You got to remember, there were no gasoline engines in Martin Luther's
No,
day.
there was not. All right, Betsy, what's your thoughts?
Gentlemen, you got to remember, I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, all the way back to where Steve used to say that he was asked, well, how did you meet Betsy? And he said, oh, I went hunting in the mountains and stomped a brush pile and she ran out. And I bought her first pair of shoes. But I grew up on a tobacco farm. I mean, that was our main income. And if we didn't sell our tobacco crop, Santa Claus didn't come on to 25th. So I grew up with two grandmothers that dipped snuff. I will admit one of them did die of lung cancer, but anyway, and my father smoked right on up until he had major heart surgery, and smoking was just something that was just a fact of life. But it's not like that now, and I do think that what they've done in Britain, I worry about the government moving in to ban it, make it illegal for a lifetime, and how are you going to police that? This did not pertain to smoking in the home or in outside venues or in private places. The thing that I thought was very ironic is that you had smoking places outside of hospitals because they said in Britain that maybe those people were trying to quit. And so I just don't think that.
But it is illegal to purchase.
It's the purchasing part, and
Right.
and it's illegal to sell it. So I just don't know what's going to happen. But like you say,
Can you say black
that-
market?
black market, yes.
Can you say
Is it going to be
speakeasy?
like? Is it going to be like prohibition
Oh,
was
very
in North
much
in
so.
in the United States? I just don't see how they can enforce it.
Well, Mike, let's get to our next question. And it seems like Kings Mountain just stays in some kind of turmoil all the time. Now we've had more resignations of top officials. There was a special call meeting as we tape this on April the 23rd that evening. Give us a rundown. What is going on? What did we miss this
Well,
week?
we talked about Kings Mountain's city council meeting, the regular one, for half the show last week, as you
We
know,
did.
Andy. But since then, we have gotten confirmation that they have two people with the title of assistant city manager. One of them's last day is today, April 24th, and that is Matt Blackwell. The other one is Chris Costner. I think he's pretty much a finance director, but I think the way this works, I don't know this is the case in Kings Mountain, but when you want to pay somebody more money, but their classification doesn't allow it, you give them a different classification, but they keep doing the same thing. I
Pretty
think
much,
that's probably
yeah.
what's going on there. But Costner's out May 1st, so right here in the middle of budget season, they're going to be without finishing up a budget with their key finance person. Was rumored that their manager had quit, was going to quit, had quit, was trying to be talked into staying. I do understand late this week that they think he is staying. And of course, he had that outburst we all saw at that council meeting that watched it to a citizen. So I hope that works out. They met this week, the day before we tape, and the only thing I understand that they did, that meeting wasn't online, but I did talk to someone that was able to tell me that they're decided that they're going to go back to one meeting per month instead of two meetings per month in Kings Mountain starting in May. And so they won't have a meeting a week from next Monday or Tuesday when they had them. The funny thing about that is you only have to allow citizen recognition once a month in local government. If you have two meetings, you don't. Shelby does not allow citizen recognition at the first monthly meeting. They do it at the second meeting. Now, if they cancel a meeting and only have one in a month, they do have to allow it. That's by statute. And I understand why Kings Mountain is doing it. I just wonder, though, Andy, what will the impact be if the citizens that are not happy, who are many over there, think they're doing it simply to try to quieten them down? I don't know.
I don't
Time
know.
will tell. But I wish Kings Mountain the best, and I hope things can get more orderly over there in their
Betsy,
meetings.
this is over in your neck
I
of the
know,
woods.
I know, and I am so sorry to see Kings Mountain in the news like this. I thought it was more like our school board. But I mean, and you have got that rivalry between the mayor and one of the newly elected councilmen. And I had hoped that the mayor would understand that once you get elected, you all work together. And now the councilman is talking about how they have maligned his reputation and all the things that's been said. and they're going and talking about spending $20,000 of taxpayer money to censoring. I really wonder what the citizens are going to say. They've been upset about the water, and now the water supervisor has resigned also, and they've been upset about roads and about streets. And I'm just I don't think the citizens will not. I think the people will look at it as saying, well, they're trying to stifle us if we can't speak twice a month. I'll just wait and see. I just hope it calms down.
Well, we all do. Wes?
Well, I don't know what's going on over there. There's obviously more than we know about going on over there, so I'll just leave it with the people in Kings Mountain deserve better than what it seems like they're getting.
Well, I think we're all in agreement on that. All right, it's time for the lightning round. Michael, what you got for us?
Well, Betsy,
What?
don't faint, but very far to the left, Democratic State Representative, is her name Deb Butler,
I know
has
Deb from
introduced
Wilmington.
a House bill this week that would have a constitutional amendment on the ballot in November that would disallow the annual salary and other allowances for members of the General Assembly if they have not passed a budget by June 30th, and they wouldn't get the money until the budget was ratified. A Civitas poll done in March asked that very question of should it be withheld, and 84.4% of the people would support that type of either law or even in a constitutional amendment. Betsy, I support her in this.
Oh,
Don't have a heart attack, Betsy.
Mike.
What you got for us, Betsy?
Well, this week, look at the national scene. 70% of Americans look at Trump with disapproval about how he's handling the economy. And look at the war, there's 67% disapprove of how he's handling the war. And I think that even though we're talking locally, that we need to remember that the national level affects us every day.
It does. Wes?
Well, a bill was introduced in Congress this week that would restore the original boundaries of Washington, D.C. to what it originally was in 1790. If the act passes, it would restore Arlington County and the city of Alexandria to the District of Columbia. This was passed for the express purpose of continuing slavery in Northern Virginia, taking it away from the state. So I do think it's time to restore the original 10 square miles to the District of Columbia.
And make Virginia Republican again.
Wouldn't go quite that far. It would certainly make a difference, wouldn't it, Mike?
Well, one thing I've got is something positive. I went this week to DMV to get my license and get the enhanced license. Folks, that's the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. And people, we all malign DMV a lot, but the folks were wonderful. Go in on their website, pick out where you want to go, and get your time and take the stuff that they say they got to have. And it's not a problem. That's all we have time for this week. Hope you'll come back next. We'll have the new edition of Political Smackdown.